Hey everybody, welcome to Thought Crime and Keto and Krime, the second to last edition of Wing. Yes, I know it's running slightly, a little bit longer into February, but November, but I'm sure you don't mind. I hope you all enjoyed the Bell Witch project. I had a lot of fun with that. Hope it didn't come off as too silly, but I really had a good time. But today I've got the story time for you. I've got my journey from Pentecostalism to Atheism. And then later this week, I'm not going to release a video on November 3rd because it is election day and I'm sure our minds will be elsewhere. But later this week, I also will release an episode with my good friend Jim from the Atheist Edge podcast and YouTube channel. We will be ranking our top 5 favorite Alfred Hitchcock movies to round out Wing. And then next weekend I will revert back to my normal true crime and history format. We will kick things off with the that very waning deposition of Jizzling Maxwell case, as well as Julie Rowe's book. And I will also get started on child serial killer Mary Bell as well. So, with that being said, a big shout out to my patrons and my channel members. I love you all. And let's get into the story, shall we? My journey into atheism.
Hey everyone. Before you watch this video, I just want to let you know this is more of a video for listening rather than watching. I filmed it very casually out on my porch, but I couldn't get a good sight beam on the sun, so it's grainy and it's not the best video I've ever done as far as that kind of quality, but it's more for just listening and telling a story than watching like my other videos. So it's by popular request, my journey into atheism. So I hope you still enjoy it. Just wanted to give you that disclaimer. Hey everyone, welcome to Thought Crime and Keto and Krime. Today, very special video for you, as I promised, by popular request. My journey from being a Christian, a Pentecostal, a very fundamental religious person, to being an atheist. And I have had a lot of requests for this, so I thought I would just tell you my story. I'll do it very casually here on our porch with the roosters and the birds and everything chirping behind me. It's a bright but cold day here in Middle Tennessee, so let's get started, shall we? Okay, I was born 1975 in Center, Alabama, and grew up and was raised the majority of my life in Collinsville, Alabama, and Gadsden, Alabama, which are 2 towns in extreme northeast Alabama. My father's family was Methodist. My mother's was a mixture of Pentecostal, which if you're unsure what Pentecostalism is, they are the types that speak in tongues. Lots of times the women wear really long skirts. They have that really high hair where, it's so high that you swear God could use it as a beer koozie. Well, she came from a mixture of that and being a Southern Baptist, which has its own particular set of issues right there. But that's the kind of environment I grew up in. We basically became more Pentecostal because we spent a lot of time in the summers with my grandparents on my mother's side, which were very ardent Pentecostals. They went to old school Pentecostal churches near Scottsboro, Alabama that were snake handlers. And if you need something to sober you up on a Sunday morning, that'll do it. I used to kind of busy myself in these churches trying to avoid what I was seeing because it was scary. Everybody speaking in tongues, snakes. I mean, they didn't ever actually try to make you hold a snake. They just would. They're there. They're available should someone want to touch them. But so they would literally. It was scary, and I used to like want to fit in so bad. I didn't really get it because I was a young kid. I didn't really get it. So I used to try to fit in, and I would literally start reciting stuff in Klingon, the myth, the language from Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek. Yeah, I knew some Klingon, and I would recite that instead of speaking in tongues, and I got by with it. But anyway, so that was always scary with me. I grew up in that atmosphere. After my grandparents died, we stopped, of course, attending those types of churches and just went to and my parents divorced. And I ended up going to a stereotypical Church of God, which is still Pentecostal, but not as radical. They don't do the snakes. And for the longest time, I think I was struggling with a lot of things, my sexuality being one of them. I was struggling with a lot of things, so I used religion as a way, sort of a crutch, you might say. I really didn't know where my life was headed, what I was going to do, but I, I honestly thought if I threw myself into religion, that it would make everything better. So I basically set my sights on being a pastor. That's what I thought I'd been called to do, what I wanted to do. But unfortunately, the Pentecostal church is one of those churches that hold very literally to translations in Paul's epistles about women remaining quiet in the church, though they can teach young children or other women. I could have easily become a Bible school teacher for young children or women, but there was no way I could ever pastor a church. Now, this Church of God believed vehemently in that, and I was told by the pastor that God had not called me to preach, that I was making that up, or that Satan was trying to mislead me. And I was like, being a burgeoning feminist, not a radical like third wave or fourth wave, whatever's going on right now, not that type of feminist, but a original old school feminist that just that wants equal opportunity for women within reason. That is, if they want to be in combat in the military, they have to pass combat training with the same standards as males. That's what I'm talking about. No lowering of physical standards. That's what I'm saying. So anyway, that pissed me off, and it was about this time that I joined the military. I worked as a cook at a honor military academy in southern Alabama and cooked for officers candidates after my basic training. So I had the most cush job that you could ever have in the military, except for the Air Force. Just kidding. Just kidding. All my Air Force brothers and sisters out there. And I was able to attend college there. So I started, attending college, and during that time I did attend a Church of God in the area, but the same thing. I thought maybe these people, since it was a college, a college town, especially with the military presence, they might be a little more forward thinking. No, it was still, you're not called to be a preacher. And I think I was still trying to save myself from an episode that occurred in my childhood. Now, this is embarrassing, but I would say from age 11 to 14, my life was literal hell. Not just because of struggling with my sexuality, which I felt I was a mortal sin and I was going to hell for. I also felt that I had committed the unpardonable sin. Sorry, I had to let that helicopter get on by. Anytime I come out here to film, Dogs go crazy, roosters go crazy, birds go crazy, and helicopters from the military base in Kentucky start flying over. But anyway, so I thought I had committed the unpardonable sin. And if you look forward, it's very prominent in all of the canonical Gospels, at least Matthew, Mark, and Luke, where Jesus is talking to the Pharisees and he talks about the unpardonable sin. Whereas all sins can be forgiven, but blasphemy against the Holy Spirit cannot be forgiven. Now, religious scholars today, that after I've researched this, they very carefully translate that as being turning away from God altogether, that can't be forgiven because you haven't asked for forgiveness, which makes sense. But as an 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old kid, I had no idea what it was. And because I was questioning things in my heart, and after my grandfather died, I got so upset that I actually cussed God for taking my grandfather, that I literally thought I had committed this sin. And my life was hell for about 3 years. I literally thought that there was no need to go on with life because I was going to go to hell when I died. So, you have that feeling of fear in your stomach. I had that literally for years on end. And as a result, the OCD and anxiety I've always struggled with really manifested. And I started not being able to leave my bedroom unless I said so many prayers and or flipped a light switch 3, 6, 9 times, whatever it was that I thought would save my soul. I know this is weird and I know this doesn't make any sense, but as a kid, and I was too afraid to ask anybody about it. And so I think I threw myself so headfirst into religion to save myself from that, to find some reasoning that I had was not going to hell. I spent a lot of time praying. I would ask God to tell me something through the Bible, and I would open the Bible and put my finger on a scripture and read it, hoping for some comfort. Sometimes I got it, sometimes I didn't, but I guess as the years went by, the pain just got more and more numb. And so by the time I had joined the military, that was still in the back of my mind, but not really. And I joined the military at 17. My dad signed for me. So I guess I just put it in the back of my mind. And so I was still going to the Church of God, still trying to integrate myself, but it was the same old, same old. So I started looking around for difference, and I sort of put religion on the back burner for a while until I was out of the Army, and actually went to a nearby community college in my hometown, still not quite sure what I wanted to do with my life. But then I got a scholarship, ironically, to an all-girls Southern Baptist college, which was in a neighboring town to the place where I was stationed in the military, and I actually got a scholarship to go there. And being a Southern Baptist college, I had to go to chapel in the Southern Baptist tradition every Wednesday, as well as a lot of the clergy. A lot of the instructors or the professors were also Baptist or other types of clergy. So there was a lot of exposure to religion and highly educated theologians there. So I felt much better about life there. I don't know if it was just that I enjoyed going to the college so much, or I made a lot of good friends that are still my friends to this day there. And I met a lot of good people there. And I was a psychology major with minors in political science, English, and history. I know. I ended up getting a double major in psychology and English and a minor in political science and history, and went on to get a master's in political science. Don't ask. I don't know why I did that. Just whatever. I'm a geek. And I was planning to go to law school. It never worked out. Still, I'm not sure exactly why I chose psychology. I think maybe because I thought it might be an easy major and it's so versatile. Anyway. But the head of the English department, who I spent so much time with, was an Episcopal priest. And he invited me to his church, and I just adored him so much. He was funny. He was kind of a rebel. I mean, he would be out back smoking and, would offer you a drag if you walked by. He was just kind of a hippie Episcopal priest. And I really liked him. And he invited me to his church. I really fell in love with the Episcopal way of doing things, the Church of England, the Anglican way. And so I was Episcopal for many, many years. And their liberal take on a lot of things really made me feel much better about a lot of things I was going through, such as my sexuality. I mean, uh, the president of the college I went to almost expelled another girl when she came out as gay and told her she was going to hell. So it wasn't something I could really come out about. So when I became an Episcopal, their approach to it, live and let live, really made me feel better. So that was kind of a growing experience. And by now I had put the whole unforgivable sin behind me and had just kind of moved on out of my mind. I'd also sought some counseling for my OCD and anxiety, unbeknownst to even my parents or my mom, because my real dad, had passed away by that time. So I had basically, put that out of my mind. And so I was doing much better. And I was an Episcopal for many, many, many years. I went on trying to date men for a long time because I just didn't want to accept the fact I was gay. But still, I found a great comfort in the Episcopal Church. And so the time came when I moved out on my own. And I moved away to California for a little while. San Francisco, didn't really do the religion thing there. I was having too much fun in the Haight-Ashbury and the Castro. And I kind of embraced my sexuality there, but then I took a job which brought me back to the South, here to Nashville, Tennessee, which is still my home to this day. Well, outside Nashville is my home. And actually ended up managing a gay bar while I was here, and I really finally came out of the closet at that point. Now, I talk about my parents in my comedy routine, because I've been doing comedy a little bit on and off all along, and I'm actually talking about my best friend from high school's parents, who have been literally my parents and accepted everything. And when I told them I was gay, they basically told me they already knew and there was no need to explain, and they were happy I was happy. So all in all, my life was going pretty good. Religion had kind of fallen to the back burner. I was kind of one of those that was spiritual but not religious, believed in God, kind of a theist. And that's the way I was for a very long time. I met my first atheist they came in. I struck up a friendship with someone that came into the bar one night, and he confessed he was an atheist, and he was my first atheist friend. And he started talking about me, but I defended the existence of God to the extreme, even though I wasn't practicing any religion. And so, but he did put some questions into my mind, and I started researching those questions, and I also was looking for a church that kind of fit my new identity as, I knew I was gay. I had embraced that. I knew I would never be happy in a church whose views were to consider me as a woman or as a gay person a second-class citizen. So I started looking for a new religion that would embrace that, because I didn't like any of the Episcopal churches in the area. So I started looking, and I actually started the process of converting to Reform Judaism. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's a very liberal form of Judaism, and to convert, you have to go through a lot of. I know what you're thinking, but it was the one religion that kind of embraced the fact that God is ever changing, therefore the Bible is ever changing, therefore you can't always interpret everything literally, if that makes sense. So I started doing that conversion process, which means I had to read a lot of original scriptures and learn a little bit of biblical Greek and a little bit of biblical Hebrew. And so when I started digging in, I realized that the scriptures I was reading were really no different than the Norse and Roman and Greek mythology I loved as a kid were. And so I started looking at it as more of a mythology. And even the rabbi of the synagogue that I attended couldn't really explain to me why it seemed that way. And she said that mythology is part of all religion, and it, though the story of Noah's Ark may not be a literal story about an actual flood and a boat, and it may actually be ripped off from earlier flood tales of other religions, it still has meaning for us. And I guess I accepted that. But that still didn't answer my question about whether or not there was a God. It was just, okay, that's mythology. You've just proven my point. And so I kind of got, as I went further and further into trying to come up with kind of a balance between me wanting to believe in God and me wanting to accept what, I hate to use the term red pill, but I had been red pilled, and so there was no going back. And so I was trying to find a balance, and that balance never came. So for a long time, I put that process on hold, and I just didn't think about it. I said, I'm a good person. I can believe in God without being a fanatic. And that's the way I lived my life for many years until I was driving, I think somewhere in Kentucky or Missouri, way to a show, and I forget what state I was in. I traveled a lot for comedy. And I saw a billboard that had been put up by American Atheist. Dave Silverman was at the helm of it at the time, and you've all seen Mr. Silverman on my channel a couple of times. And it said, you know it's fake news. And it had a picture of the, Christ's nativity. And that's when it struck me. I don't believe any of this. And that's okay. And so from that point, I considered myself an atheist. And I don't say definitively there's no God. I say definitively I don't see any proof of one. So, but that means I'm also open. If there is definitive proof that there is a God that isn't circular and that it doesn't rely on the Bible as the proof, if there's legitimate proof outside of that text where it all seems to boil down to, then I will investigate that. And if I'm wrong, I'll admit I'm wrong and I'll repent. But as of right now, I just don't see any evidence of it. And that's my journey into atheism. It's not the most exciting, but it's definitely unusual. And I wanted to share that with you and just have a conversation because we're getting close to the presidential election. It's been very contentious. And I just want everyone to know that no matter who wins, we're going to be okay. Our government can more than withstand a bad president, and we will be okay. What you need to be concerned with is your local elections. That's where you make a difference. So anyway, I just want to say I love you. I hope you enjoyed it. A big shout out to all my patrons and all my channel members. I love you so much. And I will be scheduling a patron and channel member only live stream probably in November. I know I kind of skirted on October, but it's been a very busy month, both at the day job and here. So anyway, I love you all. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you real soon. Until next time, Keto Comic out.